Good evening, I'm John Carter and welcome to Poland Daily. The Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki spoke during a press conference in Warsaw today. In his presentation, he provided his plan to shut down the Open Pension Fund, otherwise known as OFE. The plan is to provide the option for citizens to choose where to relocate their accumulated pension savings.
The amount currently held by OFE is close to 160 billion zloty, spread across 16 million Poles. If we were to then divide that sum into equal parts among those 16 million citizens, it would give us around 10,000 Polish zlotys per person enlisted in OFE. We are trying to individualize those accounts, give the money back to the people.
According to media reports, Polish-American negotiations concerning the US President Donald Trump's second visit to Poland are ongoing. The visit would take place on the 80th anniversary of the outbreak of the Second World War, September the 1st. During the visit, the US President is expected to announce the decision to increase the number of American troops stationed in Poland.
According to the Rzeczpospolita Daily, the US President is considering a visit to Poland on September 1st. During the visit, Trump is due to announce the decision on permanent American military bases being stationed in Poland.
From the information we have from the United States, we know the idea of permanent American military bases has drifted away, so I don't know what Donald Trump would say about it.
The chief of the cabinet of the president, Krzysztof Szczerski, confirmed US President Donald Trump's invitation to Poland scheduled for September 1st. Polish President Andrzej Duda will go to the United States in June.
At the moment, we have an armored American brigade which is supposed to protect us, but I'm not sure from Ukraine or Russia. I'm personally more frightened of Ukraine, but I don't believe that this brigade would help us if we really needed this help.
According to Rzeczpospolita, both the upcoming parliamentary elections and support for Trump's re-election will play a huge role in whether or not there are permanent American military bases in Poland.
This would be very beneficial for Poland. I was in the United States a month ago. I talked with congressmen and most of them think that increasing the number of permanent American military bases in Poland is a good idea. And let's not forget that the Congress will make a final decision on that matter.
Expert on international relations Jarosław Guzy indicates that Trump's schedule is very tight and that the preparations for the agreement concerning the permanent American military bases stationed in Poland are very long and complicated.
This is a matter that doesn't just require a political decision, it depends on technical and financial arrangements as well. I think there's going to be a meeting with Trump, maybe on September 1st. That will be fantastic. Signing the agreement would be a huge success for Polish diplomacy, the government and the president.
The newspaper says that Trump may announce the abolition of visas for Poles and important economic initiatives. The Assistant Secretary for the Office on International Affairs at the Energy Department, Ted Cherish, paid a visit to Warsaw last week.
The management of Ravensbrück, the former Nazi German concentration camp for female prisoners, has stirred up emotions after they decided to ban the symbol of the Polish National Armed Forces, or NSZ, on the ground of the former camp. The NSZ was a Polish military underground organisation from the Second World War, which saw many of its female members imprisoned in Ravensbrück. Far-left German organisations falsely claim that it was a fascist formation.
The controversy in Ravensbrück surrounding the symbol of the nationalist military underground organization, the NSZ, started a year ago when German far-left organizations started complaining about the large presence of Polish nationalists during a ceremony commemorating the anniversary of the liberation of Ravensbrück. This year, the director of the former campsite, Insa Esbach, took the decision to ban NSZ symbols on the camp's grounds. Almost 40,000 out of the 120,000 women who were imprisoned in Ravensbrück during the war were Polish, many of whom were sent to the camp because they belonged to the NSZ.
The Hungarian Prime Minister, Viktor Orbán, has warned that Eastern and Western Europe could be literally split over the issue of mass immigration. The statement came during a joint press conference with Serbian Prime Minister.
The Hungarian Prime Minister spoke out today about the problem of mass immigration into Europe during his visit to the Serbian city of Subotica. We are not here to hold history lessons, but I would like to make it clear to everyone that the future could see Europe split in two, a Western European and a Central European future, depending on the number of Muslim communities in those regions. The topic of migration will not be taken off the agenda, because Western Europe has let migrants and so minority groups with non-Christian cultures will go up over 10% in several Western European countries. The issue of coexistence between the Christian and non-Christian communities will define the agenda in Western Europe for decades. We, here in Central Europe, have defended our identity, we have defended our ethnic makeup, so we do not have this problem. The Prime Minister of Serbia, Ana Brnabić, argued that the issue of migration will remain on the European political agenda for the foreseeable future and that steps need to be taken to manage it better.
Migration and new migration waves are certainly something which will definitely remain on the European agenda in the future. We should, as soon as possible, sit together to discuss what the policy is and how each country, not just European Union members, but every country in Europe needs to deal with this, so each one of us can have as light a burden on the budget of our country's citizens as possible.
Hungary, Poland and the Czech Republic have all refused to take in asylum seekers which were allotted to them in 2015 by the European Union. The EU has decided to take the issue to court. The European Court of Justice has announced that it will start court proceedings against Poland, Hungary and the Czech Republic on May the 15th.
Thank you very much for joining us here this evening. I'm John Carter. Stay tuned after the break for Poland Daily Weather. It's followed by the business, history, culture and the travel.
Welcome to Poland Daily Weather. Tonight the coolest area will be the area of Olsztyn and Białystok with -1 degree Celsius. Showers won't be appearing in Poland tonight and we are expecting clear skies in many parts of the country. Tomorrow a lot of sun will be seen in the south as well as around Lower Silesia. Most regions will remain dry, however, some rain may be appearing around Olsztyn, Białystok and Lublin. Thank you and good night.
You're watching Poland Daily Business Edition. Our guest tonight is Grant Blaisdell. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Grant Blaisdell is a businessman, and you have your business here in Poland.
A good portion of it, yeah. Technically, the company is headquartered in London, but majority of the operations, employees, brawn exists here in Poland in 2 locations, mainly in Warsaw, though.
Okay, so tell us in which segment of the market you're working.
Well, the company I'm speaking of now is called CoinFirm, so I'm a co-founder of CoinFirm. CoinFirm, at this point, is generally recognized as if not the global leader when it comes to big data analytics and anti-money laundering for blockchain assets. So cryptocurrencies count as, for example, blockchain assets.
Right.
In Poland, we're most known probably for doing what could be the largest blockchain implementation in banking. And we did that along with PKO BP around our product TrueDatum. So over 5 million Polish people have already received documents registered in that platform through PKO.
Okay, so to get the customer like PKO, you had to have a long way.
Well, you mean working with them or existing a long term before that?
This is one of the biggest banks in Europe. Maybe not in first 10, but definitely in the first 15 or 60, or first 60 banks. So to get a contract from them, they need to have a track record from you.
Well, the track... You know, in the blockchain space, a track record is quite relative.
3 weeks.
So we just had our 30-year anniversary the other week, so we're practically dinosaurs in this space. Our track record, I think, you know, speaks to what we've done globally. speaks to, you know, the team members that we have, but also with how we're able to approach an entity like PKO BP, which is big, it's in a big, heavy regulated industry, and understand kind of the nuances and the processes you need to do to successfully implement something that's innovative and really kind of groundbreaking into a structure like that, because it's a big structure, like you said.
Right, because the blockchain was created to assure the anonymity of transaction.
No.
That's
something. That's something that's kind of sold by, like, I come out of digital media originally. I worked around what some people could call propagandists and how they structure things in words together to push a little narrative. Bitcoin itself is pseudo-anonymous. My company specializes in anti-money laundering. Really, that's where we separate ourselves from everything else. The honest truth is that blockchain is the most transparent and trusted data system, but in this case, financial system ever created. It's immutable, so you can't take out transactions, you can't manipulate the blockchain, so it's a distributed ledger. You see all the transactions, this point to this point, right? Tying it up with identity is an entirely different thing, right? Saying Grant Blaisdell, this is his address, he sent. These are entirely two different things, right? So in reality, actually, once you understand the technology, blockchain and Bitcoin and most cryptocurrencies, it actually allows for the best regulatory type of compliance around anti-money laundering and knowing your customer. It's actually going to change that. So my company makes that 90 times more effective than the banks are doing it.
How do you do that?
Blockchain in itself technologically has certain characteristics I just mentioned. So mutability, it's a distributed database. You have all that data source right there. Also the world of analytics.
So you are finding the pattern of suspicious transactions?
Yeah, that's actually, you caught that pretty quickly. What we're doing really is we have the largest blockchain database in the world. We push that through around 200 proprietary algorithms, all these risk flagging scenarios, about 300 of them. So at the end, you get risk rating. What are they flagging up? How's it acting in a space that's flagging up these risky aspects and contributing to that risk score? So it's totally changing the realities of how we've approached these sort of compliance processes before.
Yeah, because on one side we are all for the anonymity and the people not being followed by any government or how they spend their money.
Sure.
On the other side, we are against the bad guys who are trying to launder the money they stole.
It's a touchy balance. It's a touchy balance between the two. I'm for a limited state, federal state specifically. You know, I'm an American, so I kind of have an original American viewpoint towards that. But also being a co-founder of this project has given me a little bit different perspectives as a business person, because you guys have to also understand that these businesses are accepting risk on themselves. And they need to mitigate that risk somehow. Because what, you're going to accept money from somebody and it comes back around to you, and what, you got to give the money back, you got to go to court, you got to deal with all these sort of issues. So it's bigger than just government intrusion, to be honest. It's also, I think, independent business people would naturally evolve to want these sort of protections around them as well.
Right. And this is just starting a trend, and you are in the cutting edge of it, and your transaction you'll deal with PKO BP Bank gives you some advantage, puts you in the spotlight of the industry?
PKO is not our biggest bank client.
Okay.
So our biggest one's in Japan. I can't publicly name exactly which bank it is. With what we did with PKO is a bit different. What we did with PKO, I think, is what we're going to see as the first kind of generation of banking implementations, which is a little bit more about kind of improving the back ends of the systems. So with them, it deals with data provenance, trwały nośnik, durable medium, you know, that regulatory aspect. With the bank in Japan, they built their own stable coin. So it's like their own cryptocurrency, but it's pegged to the yen. It's built on Hyperledger, so different type of blockchain fabric than Bitcoin. And we built a custom anti-money laundering layer for them on that. They're already testing it in the market. So yeah, you're going to see a lot of big entities enter this space, but it's going to be gradual.
Okay. How do you see the beneficiary of the blockchain technology for banks? How do they benefit from that?
Well, I think, you know, the original, kind of one of the original promises around it is cutting out the middlemen and improving trust. Banks are there mainly for trust aspects. That's true. Right? And I'm not part of this dystopia, utopia, no matter how you look at it, where, you know, human-to-human elements of trust are going to disappear and it's going to be all. I think innately as human beings we have something about contact and it being a person. So I don't think the banks are going to formally disappear, but what they see is of course, there's a competition end, that if they don't react to this like digital media and entertainment and music industry reacted to their P2P revolution, which was Napster, etc., which they reacted horribly.
If you remember the name of Napster, wow, well, it was one of the few.
Well, I was old enough to use it, so and LimeWire and all the other
met
ones.
The founder.
Have you?
Yep.
I haven't had a chance to do that. He seems like my type of kind of character, actually. But the financial system's understanding, okay, this can do these things. It has this potential threat, but has these potential opportunities, which is improving the back end and the trust of their systems, eliminating middlemen, inefficiencies. You know, what we're doing around AML, you know, in banks and a lot of these institutions, their KYC AML departments are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. Right, manually going and cross-checking data. Well, one thing my company is doing is changing the reality of that and giving it to you in 5 seconds, you know, through analysis, right, as opposed to that chain link process. So you're going to see it change kind of the core and the back end of how our banking systems work, and it's going to open up a lot of more people potentially to banks as clients. One reason, for example, Africa is hard to reach in is because it's high-risk area, right? That's another reason that they have.
Find the honest people among the farmers and herders over there.
If you have such an effective system like we're trying to build that you can discriminate based on the individual extremely accurately, then you can change the realities based off, you know, geographic high-risk flaggings. You know, Iran's an interesting case, right? So Poland's been transacting with Iran for a long time. But an American, if he does that, an American entity does that, they're screwed. No matter how legitimate or not legitimate the person, the entity is on the other end.
Right, right. Well, it's a very interesting world in front of us. And tell me, we are pretty much at the end of our conversation, but you said in the beginning that the brains and manpower is in Poland.
Yeah.
Did you had any problems with finding the right people for the tasks?
I'm half Polish. My mother's originally from here. I lived here a bit during the 90s after communism fell when I was young. I wasn't here for 12 years. I came back with this particular mission, actually. And, you know, this coin firm stuff is seemingly kind of built off of that, which I heavily believe in the potential capacity, talent here in Poland, especially around tech. I mean, we've seen that in global rankings where Poland ranks top 3 generally when it comes to programming, talent, etc. The issues, and once again, I'm half Polish, so I'm saying this as a Pole myself. The problems why Poland isn't where people think it should be, where I think it should be, if you look at some other similar size economies, how they can perform, or smaller ones, is attitude and culture. When I look at, you know, the United States, it's not the biggest market. China is. So China would be dominating forever if it was about market size. We're definitely not the smartest if you look at IQ, you know, and average aspects like that. Poles are much more educated, have much higher IQs, I think. So what are these innate qualities that makes U.S. kind of American successful in that? And you see this along the space. I'm in the startup space, so you see it with investors. American investors are absolutely different. They're European investors. This isn't a Polish-only problem. It's Europe and the UK too. Risk-averse. Americans are less risk-averse
than Poles. But Greg Blaisdell, thank you very much for this conversation. And that was it for tonight's Poland Daily Business.
Welcome again to Poland Daily Weather. Poland tomorrow will see quite a bit of sun, except the areas of Olsztyn, Białystok and Lublin. The maximum temperature will be 13 degrees Celsius and the minimum will be 9 degrees in Gdańsk and Lublin. If we look at the weather forecast for Europe, we will see that tomorrow the coolest city will be Helsinki with 12 degrees. Nice and sunny in Central Europe, also in the north and around Lisbon and Madrid in Spain. This is all for tonight. Today we have a special surprise for you. We're taking you to the house of the great painter Jan Matejko. Let's go inside.
The National Museum in Krakow was established by a resolution of the Krakow City Council on October 7, 1879, as the first national museum institution at a time when the Polish people were deprived of their own statehood and country, which had been appropriated by the partitioning powers of Austria, Russia, and Germany. Until the end of World War I, it was the only such large museum accessible to the public in the Polish lands, and to this day remains the institution with the largest numbers of collections, buildings, and permanent exhibitions. The collection of the National Museum in Krakow was begun with Nero's torches, Henryk Szymanowski's painting presented to the city of Krakow by the artist himself on October 5, 1879, with the intention of creating a gallery of national art in the Sukiennica, the cloth hall. The following day, October 6, 1879, 39 artists attending the celebration of Józef Ignacy Kraszewski's 50 years of work as an author gathered in Konrad Wenzel's townhouse at the main market square and promised donations of their works to form the initial collection of the newly formed museum. The artist's example was soon emulated by private individuals who began to send donations to the museum in the Sukiennica.
In this episode of Poland Daily Culture, we are in a different room and we will explore something more. Mrs. Marta, what room are we in?
Jesteśmy w salonie domu artysty, pokoju reprezentacyjnym, w którym Jan Matejko przyjmował gości, w którym odwiedził go również cesarz Austrii Franciszek Józef.
We are in the artist's living room. It was a representative room where Jan Matejko used to invite his guests. In this very room, an emperor of Austria, Franz Joseph I, paid him a visit. Due to the fact that the museum's anniversary, as I mentioned before, we prepared an exhibition which we set up here in this room as a museum's exhibition. And it looks exactly like the first exhibition from 100 years ago. We can see portraits, Jan Matejko's self-portrait, and a portrait of Chicherin, which museum get as a gift. During the museum's first years, many donors sent their own artworks, donations from the lottery. Those pieces of art completed our exhibition. In this very room, in the accordance with the fashion of that time, the cabinets with Jan Matejko's orders. We have here the most important ones, among others, a scepter in recognition of his work and his position as one of the most respected Polish artists, golden wreaths and medals for his artwork. He received a gold medal for his painting called The Sermon of Piotr Skarga, the Legion of Honor for the Union of Lublin, and the Order of Pope Pius IX for his painting, The Battle of Vienna, which is right now in the Vatican's museum because Jan Matejko gave it to Pope Leo XIII as a gift from Poles. An amazing story is connected to this painting. He was working on this painting in the 100th anniversary of the battle. Jan Matejko showed this painting in Vienna. He paid for a room so that inhabitants of Vienna could watch it for a whole month for free. Matejko's secretary was telling everyone a story about this painting to remind people from Vienna that the Polish king with his army took part in the battle and helped them win. After the painting was handed over to the Vatican, Jan Matejko received a blessing not only for himself, his family, and people who came there with him, but for the entire Poland. On the next day, well-known European newspapers wrote about this. It meant a lot to Poles because it was the time of the partition of Poland.
A miało to ogromne znaczenie dla Polaków, bo przecież był to czas wciąż zaborów.
And those two books over there?
To książka związana z wystawą, jaka odbywała się.
This book is connected to the exhibition that was entirely dedicated to Adam Mickiewicz's work. We have many works of artists in our collection. They usually write about historical events, science, they organize exhibitions, and they often donate their work to our museum. On the table in front of us, we can see an album in which students put their artwork.
Na stole przed nami również album. W tym latach jubileuszu często studenci darowywali Janowi Matejce albumy, do których włączali swoje prace.
Just how strong the need to create such an institution was is exemplified by the fact that soon after the opening of the first museum exhibition in September 1883, the volume of donations grew exponentially. Not only single objects, but whole collections were donated. From the outset, the museum gathered works by contemporary and historic Polish artists from wherever they had lived or worked. The items collected included national mementos and objects connected with individuals recognized for their services to the country or otherwise relevant to national history and culture, including art prints, manuscripts, old prints, numismatics, decorative art objects, and militaria. As far as possible, examples of foreign art, including Far Eastern art, were collected as well. The turn of the 20th century coincided with a change of director at the National Museum, following the unexpected death of Professor Władysław Uszczkiewicz on May 23, 1900. The committee of the National Museum announced a competition which selected Dr. Felix Kopera, until then the director of Count Emeryk Hutenczapski's museum in Krakow, and his appointment followed on April 25, 1901. In the same period, the museum doubled its floor space after the Friends of the Art Society vacated the other wing of the Sukiennica. Following renovation work, an entirely new, considerably larger modern exhibit was arranged, which, in addition to showing artworks chronologically and thematically, also included archaeological and ethnographic objects. The collecting of the latter was discontinued soon thereafter due to shortage of space, and in light of the rise of institutions specializing in these areas.
So what room are we in now, under the stars?
Pokój pod gwiazdami, który był buduarem żony artysty. Pokój urządzony przede wszystkim pamiątkami z kolekcji malarza. Pamiątki przywiezione.
This is the so-called room under the stars, which was the artist's wife boudoir. The room is decorated with the artist's souvenirs from his trip to the Middle East, Turkey, today's Iran, and Syria. We have here Persian prayer books, Persian carpets, Turkish furniture, souvenirs connected with the Polish history, and also souvenirs that his wife used in everyday life. A boat-shaped table with many compartments in which she kept sewing accessories, needles, threads, etc. We have also other things like the Biedermeier's furniture. Originally in this room were also this guardian angel hanging on the wall from 1627. There are also some personal items like the ones in the cabinet. Jan Matejko's summer jacket, a hat, a stick which helped him walk, and his Chelsea boots. On the other side of the guardian angel's painting, we have other religious paintings from 1875, titled The Assumption of Mary into Heaven. A short digression, Jan Matejko didn't want money for his religious paintings. He gave them as a gift. His last amazing artwork was a polychrome of the St. Mary's Church in Krakow. The room under the stars was artist's last bedroom. He died in this very room on November 1st, 1893.
Ten pokój pod gwiazdami stał się również ostatnią sypialnią artysty i w tym pokoju malarz zmarł 1 listopada 1890.
Let's move to the other place.
Zapraszam dalej. Sypialnia Jana Matejki mieściła się w tej niszy sypialnianej.
Jan Matejko's bedroom was located in this room. It was decorated with the tapestry from the collection. It was a normal tapestry that belonged to Mary, Kazimierz, Louise de la Grange, their queen. The tapestry is one of the 3 that came from the Chinese room of the Pithistry castle. It was handed over to Matejko during his visit in Lviv. A bookcase stands next to his bed, in which are many historical books and the Bible. He often read them. When he died, an idea of museum came up, and we decided to keep this room the way it was. So we kept his bed and a bookcase. We enriched this room by adding these plaster masks made after his death. According to the habit of the second half of the 19th century, people made plaster masks of famous people after their deaths. And we have them also in our collection. Apart from the plaster mask, we also have a mask made with silver.
Wykonaną maskę pośmiertną twarzy artysty w srebrze.
So this is the actual mask.
Yes. Kiedy do muzeum trafili pierwsi zwiedzający,
when first visitors came to the museum in 1898, they considered this place as a place of worship. They wanted a candle here beside artist's bed.
Mieściła się i pasyjki, paliła się lampka.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Poland Daily History. Today we are at the city of Lublin. We will meet with Mr. Martin Dalebout, a Dutchman that moved to Lublin, fell in love with the city, and now worked as a tour guide showing the world Lublin's most crown jewels. This place is absolutely breathtaking. And I was wondering if you can tell me a little bit about where we are. Like, what is this place called? And who are all these people on paintings and what era and specifically? You can go a little bit into that.
Yeah, of course. And I agree with you. It is a lovely place. It is the Holy Trinity Chapel here in Lublin. It is also called the Castle Chapel. Castle Church. Right. And it's old. It's really an old piece of church. The paintings you are seeing here, they are dating back till 1408. 1408. And they are commissioned by a lovely king we had here in Poland. I'm sorry, I'm not native Polish, so it's hard to pronounce the chap's name. But the king's name is Władysław Jagiełło. And that chap was really a nice ruler here in Poland. And believe me, he loved Lublin. Right. For a couple of reasons. He got married to Jadwiga in 1438. Yeah, 1438. Right. And the contract stating that he was allowed to marry Jadwiga was signed here in Lublin. Right here. So, you know, then you love this place already, you know. Yeah. Later in his life, there was also another nice, lovely ordeal here happening for him. Top of my head was 1421. He became the king of Czech. Right. And the throne was offered here in Lublin. So this whole chapel is marvelously decorated. They started with it in 1408. And it is decorated in the Byzantine style. Right. And it are all frescoes you are seeing here. And it has actually to do with the fact that Jagiełło is from Lithuania. He was actually the Grand Duke of Lithuania before he married to Jadwiga. And he didn't like the Roman Catholic church art. So this chap was definitely Roman Catholic because he converted Lithuania, the biggest pagan country in Europe, to Christianity. Look at that. But yeah, the style of the art of the popes in Rome, that was not his cup of tea. So he decided, okay, I bring in my own artists. Right. So they were from Vilnius, from Lithuania, and they decorated this whole place with Byzantine art. And I always call it to my audience, it's like a comic book. Right. And in the most brilliant way, you know. It is depicting the Bible. Right. And it's also necessary to depict the Bible because people were often analphabetic at the time. So yeah, you know, how to bring over the message of Christianity if people couldn't read. And also the Holy Mass was in Latin. and who was understanding Roman Latin at the time.
Right. That's very interesting. So like it does have this feel of the panels telling one story and
absolutely. There are panels depicting here, for example, Judas. There are panels here depicting Maria when she passed away. There are panels depicting the Holy Spirit, the Holy Ghost. The archangels are depicted here above my head. It's all there. There are so many fragments out of the Bible. The flocking of Jesus on the Golgotha, it's all depicted here in this chapel.
That's beautiful, beautiful.
One of the coolest pictures, in my humble opinion, here in the chapel is here behind me, a picture of Jan Matejko himself. He is not often depicted, so this is really cool. The funny thing is, this chap is depicted by a beard. He is nearly, yeah, that is weird, because he was normally clean-shaven.
Exactly, I don't remember him having a beard.
Yeah, because if you have your 100 zloty banknote, then Jan Matejko is clean-shaven on it, and he was always clean-shaven. But because he hired Byzantine artists, they depicted always a king with a beard. So a king without a beard a king without a beard wasn't a king. He had no king. So another cool thing is there's a lot of symbolism in that picture. He is kneeling down. The king is kneeling down for Maria and child. This literally meant that he is converted to Christianity, and that he is humble towards his religion. And beside him is standing St. Nicholas. And St. Nicholas is also well known for bringing Christianity to the East. So yeah, there are so many stories actually hidden in this lovely chapel.
The Chapel of the Holy Trinity was built in 1326, but later rebuilt in the Gothic style on the orders of King Władysław Jagiełło in 1407. A team of Ruthenian painters working under Master Andrii started finishing the frescoes in 1418. Next up, we will talk with Mr. Dalebout about the significance the chapel held during the Union of Lublin, uniting Poland and the Grand Duchy of Lithuania in 1569.
Aside from these paintings, I also see some text carved into the artwork, and I was wondering if they have any significant meaning, or were they just like graffitis of the tourists?
I love the word graffiti. Wow, nice choice, because it is historical graffiti what you are seeing
historical
over here.
Graffiti.
Yeah, historical graffiti. We had something marvelous here in Lublin. In 1569, so quite a while ago, Lithuania and Poland became one united nation with an elected king. And all the negotiations took place here in Lublin, so they call it the Union of Lublin. That was a long process. So all those, how do you say, diplomats at the time, they were here in Lublin, and they were quite bored, and they were very happy after months and months and months that the union was signed off. So you can find graffiti here on the walls, names, dates, coat of arms. Literally, somebody was writing down in Latin from, oh, thanks God, the union is closed, finally. So they left literally their name as a memorial.
Right. So these are just carvings of, say tourists, but not exactly, but because these are also significant persons at the time. They have
a very significant meaning, because literally we knew from the history that the union was closed here, but the proof is in the pudding, and here the proof is on the walls.
What about those texts written over there by the arch?
Oh, behind me. Oh, that's really cool. It's literally a statement that Master Andrii commissioned this work. He commissioned it in 1418. A lot of the text is missing, so we have actually not so much an idea what there is stated. But we know Andrii was in charge of the whole decoration of this chapel, and it happened, or it was finalized, in 1418. And that's all what I can share with you, Ben. I'm sorry.
One thing I find interesting are the curtains or these drapes around depicted on the walls. I was wondering if there's any special significance.
Yeah, it's pretty odd, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is also against symbolism. They use symbolism a lot in the medieval times. It is depicting the eternal life literally above our heads in the common life. So literally up to our heads, there are curtains, common daily life. And the eternal life is above you.
Oh, that's
so actually you are simply a tiny, simple human being, and above you, there's a spiritual life.
It is actually pretty hard to imagine these extraordinary artwork being preserved throughout the ages. And I was wondering, has it always been here? Because I know that Poland has gone through a lot of wars.
No. Actually, during the partition of Poland, the Russians were ruling here. They made out of the castle a prison, and literally everything, all the beautiful paintings and frescoes were plastered over. That happened in 1890. Thanks God, already in 1899, a local artist started to discover frescoes again, and restorations happened literally from that moment until 1997. So the whole chapel is restored.
As we can see, Lublin is one of the oldest cities filled with historical monuments, but the beating heart of the city, the Lublin Castle, is right behind me. The castle was a prison for over a century when Poland was under occupation, but today it serves a positive purpose of being the city's main museum. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. I'll see you next time on Poland Daily History.
Hello everybody and welcome to another exciting edition of Poland Daily Travel. You may see a body of water behind me. It is known as the Vistula River, the Wisła River in Polish. And behind me, if you follow this river, you'll end up in the capital city of Warsaw. If you go south, the other direction, towards the sun right now, southeast, you will come to our destination. Kazimierz Dolny is one of the fabulous Renaissance sites of Poland. A beautiful, small, formerly bustling market town that is several hundred years ago. Now it's kind of a tourist attraction, and it's a place where a lot of people from Lublin, Warsaw, and other places have summer homes. It's an unmissable treat, and we're going to show you all of the all of the sites, or as many as we can get to, on this fine April day. They say that April is the cruelest month, but not here and not today. In fact, it's a fantastic day. You know, where I'm standing right now, if you cameraman, if you look over there, you'll see that this is actually a ferry crossing. But still a bit too early in the season. I believe these will start to open sometime in the middle of the month or the beginning of May. There are a lot of such crossings all up and down the river. There are plenty of, well, not plenty, but there are bridges enough so that you don't have to go too much out of your way. But for people who live in these localities, farmers living on both sides, particularly farmers or agricultural workers who are living on both sides of the river here, they can cross much more conveniently if they take a ferry. So anyway, that's my introduction. Before we get to Kazimierz, we're going to make another short stop in Puławy. So stay with us for Poland Daily Travel as we are on the road. Stay with us. We'll be right back with more exciting stuff. Poland Daily Travel. Hey, and check it out. One of the nicest short trips as we visit Kazimierz Dolny. This beautiful small town is 2.5 hours drive from Warsaw, south along the Wisła. It's one of the finest sights in Central Europe. And we'll start off in the market square, where local citizens are doing what they've done for centuries. A bit of morning trading. Hello and welcome back to Poland Daily. We're here in the market square, the Rynek, in Kazimierz Dolny. This is a Renaissance city, and we are here in the middle of market day, which will go on till about midday. It's still early morning here, and if I'm not attacked by pigeons, you'll see that it's still a living place. People come in from the countryside around here, and they're selling their various products, flowers and mushrooms and fruits and vegetables and all kinds of things like that. So at this point, we can say this town, which had its heyday many centuries ago, still lives, not just as a tourist attraction, but as a place where locals can bring their wares and sell them and do some shopping. Let's take a look at what's on offer here. Now we can see, here's a guy selling honey. Various fruits and some vegetables here. Here's one. These are cranberries, dried cranberries, very popular. And here we have apples. Walnuts. Yeah. And here's some walnuts for sale. 10 zlotys. That's about $2.50 for a nice thing of walnuts. That's a pretty good price. Might have to come back and get some of those. Here we have eggs, radishes, things like that. So just local stuff. Przepraszam, co to jest? Chan. Ah, horseradish. This is horseradish. And it's very strong horseradish, she says. Yeah. And what? And here? What? Rotkiewka. This is radish. Yeah. And jabłka, apples, right? Yeah. Okay. Very good. And here, the seeds, because it's spring and it's time to plant, and this man is doing a good business in seeds. Yeah, all the kinds of seeds you need here. Everything for your garden. Beans, all kinds of stuff. Herbs, corn. Well, it's self-explanatory what a lot of it is. Carrots. And there you are. Let's take a walk back down here. You see, you get a feeling here that this has been going on in this town for ages. I mean, this is just the modern manifestation of an old-time market square, not just a tourist attraction. And here we have various kinds of bulbs. A lot of lilies, you can see. Lilia is lily. Yeah. Dzień dobry panu. Dzień dobry. This is nice honey. And if you would come, jak pan ma na imię? Stanisław. Stanisław has honey. This is miod in Polish. And pan jest z okolicy? Yeah? He says he's from the area. Pana rodzina przed? Też? No, and his family before him. So, as you can see, there's a real working market. This is, dziękuję, dziękuję. This is a real live and living place. You know? It's great. This must have been going on for centuries like this. Had to be. And here we have juice from beets. This is beet juice here, and apple juice. Yeah. Dzień dobry panu. And more flowers, and so forth. Dzień dobry panu. Dzień dobry. Yeah, to jest do angielskie telewizja. No. Angielskie telewizja.
Tak, Londyn.
Tak.
Beautiful town.
Yeah, beautiful town. There you are. It's television in English, but to explain too much would be confusing. Bardzo ładna pan ma. No.
Okay.
Dziękuję.
Thank you.
I said very pretty flowers.
Bye
Yeah.
bye.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. Good afternoon. Good morning. He's got a lot of different herbs and things like that here. Very nice, beautiful stuff. And seeds again. So everybody's ready for spring. That's what's going on here. Spring is happening all around us, as we'll see more today. Stay with us. Poland Daily. We're here in the Market Square in one of the most beautiful towns in Central Europe, Kazimierz Dolny. Stay with us for the next episode.